Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how did you know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru.
Jennifer, it is so nice to be here on a Wednesday evening.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Before we dive into today's episode, real quick, just to give you guys a heads up, it is pouring rain here where I am located in Houston, Texas. So if something happens, the internet has already popped off a couple times. If something happens, Dan should be hanging in there. But just to let you know, if we lose the show, we will make sure to get a copy up and get with you.
Yep. It's possible we may get knocked off.
Yes, it is possible we may get knocked off.
Okay.
I really want to make it. Yeah, it's not the government. That's right. It's not the government, guys. Not yet, at least.
Not yet.
I'm pretty sure they are following us already. But before we do a little bit more that I want to do in the beginnings, because I have been paying attention, and I've mentioned this on other shows, people are really listening to the podcast on our channels. You can find it on Spotify, Amazon Music, Google. There's another cast. You can go to Anchor, find all of our connections. We are not on Apple just yet, but we are getting our word out there. So for those of you who are listening in, just to give you guys a heads up, I know it's probably been a struggle with not being able to follow the charts. Check the description. You should be able to have a download PDF if you are listening to this. So kind of want to make it a little bit more interactive.
Right.
And to let you know that we are paying attention. I'm overwhelmed with all of the responses that we have been getting on this show. People have been reaching out and all of the messages. I mean, Dan, we got an email this week about how we actually impacted somebody's life, and I was really excited to hear that.
That was Nikki. It was just such a gorgeous email. It was just, I was like, I love that. People pipe in with who they naturally are, saying what they really are, and it's just a thing of beauty.
Yes, and that's the whole reason that we actually got started on the Human Design Advantage. Started as a podcast. It is now growing into something a lot more bigger than that. So please stay tuned. But yes, just to let you guys know, I wanted to give that little update, and you already know what to do. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show. I'm going to pop up the description up here, and I'll read it for those who are, or for listening. Check the links in there. Make sure you guys are signed up to our newsletter list. We're going to be having some updates come out, and you also get an email after the podcast is posted, and some other things. So make sure that you have subscribed. And if anything does happen to us and, the government does take us down, we'll have your email address so we can shoot you an email. You're on mute, Dan.
How about now? You hear me?
Now,
okay.
You long clear. What were you saying?
I was just making sure that I wasn't. I got a little microphone icon said something was wrong, so I figured I would test it. But we're all good.
Oh, okay. Well, I am really excited to be diving into.
How
tonight.
well do you know David Icke? I followed him for a while, and I've seen him, and it's like he's really something.
So I had my awakening about 6 years ago. It was 6 years in May. I can remember. So I was dating a guy at the time who had been awake to the political side of things, and he had a couple of David Icke's books on his bookshelf. So I did. I watched him. I've read a couple of his books, and I know that he actually came on the scene and being a conspiracy theorist. He talks a lot about the reptilians. He talks a lot about the royal family and all those sorts of things. And I did want to kind of, I like to pull up what titles they're given by either Wikipedia or whatever. And his first one was conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
So,
no, I know. I noticed that too. I hate this term, conspiracy theorist.
I do too.
Yeah. Let's not publish that anymore. I don't
Well,
want to.
I want to educate people on that, what exactly that is, because he is. He knows that there are people out there who conspire against us, and it's not a theory. David Icke, if he has had that title, he's actually earned it because he goes above and beyond, and he has for many, 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 many years proving his theories.
Right,
So,
you are right, and he's actually good at it.
but he is very good at it.
Mhm.
So, I'm excited to see what happens in this chart today.
Yeah, me too. I keep looking at his chart, and I keep being dumbfounded by all the cool stuff that I see. So yeah, let's pull up his chart. Let's have a look at Sir David Icke.
All right.
So
conspiracy theorist, former footballer, but I believe that would be to us soccer.
Yeah.
And sports broadcaster.
Yep.
I didn't know he was
a pain in the ass to the establishment at this point. Yeah, he's banned. So David Icke managed to get himself banned for even being able to go to Australia or speak in Australia, something like that. So much for freedom of speech. And I guess he has a very difficult time finding the allowance to have an audience in England, where he's from, and so that's just censorship at play once again. So David Icke keeps tapping into, and you can sort of see it in this look. You know what I mean?
This is a staple look.
It's such a signature look for David. I mean, this is him, and he always keeps seeming to tap into. Every time I hear him talk, more and more, and the older he gets, the more I recognize he keeps keynoting himself and the planet. I'm noticing it more and more and more. It's like an ocean wave that keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's happening fast. So the world is waking up fast because everywhere I look, and David is no exception, they keep talking about this separation between our body's consciousness and our mind's consciousness. Mm-hmm. And our connection to it all, our connection to everything. David was going through a seminar, and I was watching it earlier today, and he was talking about how we are all an aspect. He was on a show with a guy who announced him as, "Here's David Icke, a little controversial. He says he's the son of God." David, do you really think you're the son of God? And he's like, dude, we're all the children of God, he says. And he starts going into how we're all an aspect of the totality, which of course we are. Mm-hmm. And so that's an aspect of it all. But looking at his chart, it would be real easy to look at this and get a little bit confused. There's only definition down below. And so a lot of times,
that's what I noticed. Like he's
people
very
ask,
open.
how do you read something like this? How do you read something like this? And as soon as if you have four or less, if you have three or two centers defined, I notice there's an aspect that makes the individual be, it's like a reflector, because so much of them is open, they end up reflecting back certain things. Now, they're not a reflector. That's not their aura. It's not what they're here for. But they themselves experience the reflection of so much because they're so open. So here's David, open to almost everything, and the one center, the two centers that are completely open are the head center, which is the pineal gland, the deep gray area. This is dialed into the planet's inspiration field. So picture every center as if it's a field on the planet. And we've gone over this before, like there's a field of light. You can tell it, what those constraints are with a rainbow, from the red all the way to the purple. There's a field of sound. There's a field of gravity. There's a field of everything. Outside there's a field of space outside of our atmosphere. So there's a field of consciousness. There's the field of inspiration on the planet. The inspiration to want to know where and why and what, and to want to answer questions. And an open head center very much can be making the person think about things that don't matter, right? That's what we normally do. Mm-hmm. But let's say you get past that because you're thinking about everything and you start to make sense of stuff, or something comes through. Suddenly it's not things that don't matter. It's just things. David Icke is filtering all the things on the planet. He's wide open to it. So he doesn't know what to answer. When you have no activation in the head center, it says, I don't know what to answer. It's not just I'm thinking about too many things. There's so much stuff, I don't even know what to answer. So what does he have left? He has only his definition to fall back on to suddenly come up with what to answer. Now, the next open center that's completely open is the G center, in the center of the body graph. There's no activations there. So when there's an activation on the G center, the keynoting is looking for love and direction, concerning yourself about your own love and direction. Is your love moving in the right direction? This is just a very common theme. We're always asking it, whether it's defined or not. We want what the things we love in ourselves to be moving in a direction towards something that's better. And better is always something that's more attractive, prettier, nicer, feels better. And so he's completely open there. And the question, the not self question for this, or the question for this center when it's completely open, is I don't even know who I am. David Icke as a footballer, David Icke as a young man growing up, David Icke as someone in his 30s moving through to his 40s and starting to grow wise about who he is, literally has always known and or concerned himself with, who am I? Literally, what am I? I can't tell who I am. So now it depends on his upbringing, but if he was brought up in a family that gave a good, strong identity, and it looks like he was, suddenly he wouldn't concern himself with that so much. And these two open centers work in a synergy together. The open head is a pressure to pull in all of the inspiration and the possible knowings. It's the pressure to know for him. It's the pressure to make logical sense of things for him. Those are the two activations in his ajna center. Go ahead. You're going to say something?
Well, what he talks about, I could see probably at the very beginning that he had a struggle because, most people can't make sense that we are being ruled by reptilians. So making logical sense out of that, I'm wondering how long would it have taken him to...
If he were defined in these centers and any other definition than this, and ultimately he would be making sense of things completely differently. In fact, we might not have never known David Icke. This is the design of somebody who is here to ultimately be known. This is a design of being able to really answer the call to the mystery of it all. To the mystery of it all. And this is what he's been really tracking down. So when you put these two totally open centers together, it's not even knowing what questions to answer. So all questions become available, right? Even if they're one at a time. And who am I amongst all of those questions? He is the Son of God. He is an aspect of it all. That makes everything possible. As I kept looking at David Icke's thing, I was like, David, how do you come up with all this stuff, buddy? You'll say anything, and he spots it all, from the corruption to, the elites to all of it. He's just well aware of all of it, and he keeps spilling it out that we're going to destroy ourselves if we keep going down this path, and he's right. And so I kept looking at it saying, what makes it so special? And I keyed in on the 2 fully open centers, and it just became aware to me that is, you know, something, this is a design of somebody who doesn't need to know who they are. They're answering the question in their stream of consciousness while they start talking. David has been channeling who he is the whole time. He's been getting who he is and the questions to ask about who he is from what he considers the ether, when really his body graph has been channeling all of this stuff for him. His openness is where he is receptive to all of the forces. So look at all the openness. He's incredibly receptive to all the forces, with a guarantee of, if he's sane and keeps it together, of having this magical power, because he's a generator after all, right? He's a generator. Generator's a generator. So that means all the energy in the world, day and night, to just focus on a thing and start to answer the question as it relates to how he interacts with the program. This is David. So he is interacting with the program. I can't tell you for sure what it is he sees in all the accounts, but he does do his share of actually explaining to us what is it he's saying. He explains everything. And so yeah, you take those things, and this is a design of becoming aware of what he is and the questions that need to be asked, because he's completely open in those 2 centers. Somewhere along the line, he's broken through the limitation of having too many things go through and having it become basically enough of the things that come through.
He's written over 20 books.
Is that really? Yeah.
It was The Human Race is the one that I read. He wrote that back in 2010.
That sounds like David. So you take these centers and all the rest of the openness, and you start to recognize that he is able to filter basically all the stuff we would care to know because of this amount of openness. So when David Icke starts speaking and channeling through the stuff he knows, he's always so fast to reply. If you've ever watched him live, he never doesn't have pretty much an immediate reply. He's basically busting in. He's being like a generator, just like he's already trying to respond, you know, as the person is finishing their question. He never gives anybody a chance to really say much anything else other than barely get their question out. And then boom, he starts running with it. Now, let's look at his definition real quick. Notice he only has individual definition. He has the channel of emoting, which is 39 to 55, going off the root center up to the solar plex, 39 down to the up. So, and that's individual. That's in the individual stream of, this is the individual stream of awareness, which is about wanting. It's about his passion. It's about that which he grows a flavor for and won't let go of, because he shouldn't. Why should he? Yeah. He's an individual. And then he's got this wicked powerful channel of mutation. So, I heard that.
Yeah,
it's a nice sound effect. This channel of mutation is all about being stuck and then suddenly coming to order. I'm stuck, and suddenly that sacral kicks in. That's 60 up to gate 3, from the top of the root center to the bottom of the sacral. Yeah, the channel of mutation. This is about being a mutative force. That's what the individual is. So let's go back to what we remember about individual definition. The individual is so unique, they're only understandable by themselves unless they can explain themselves. If they can't explain themselves, they're too unique, and people think they're weird, or they'll have terms, or they'll, you know what I mean? They'll say flippant things, you know, like, oh, he's a da-da-da, and they'll just try and, marginalize David Icke by a few words. You know, media does that all the time. And so he only knows this as a way. He's only individual. He has been aware his whole life that he really doesn't understand a lot about the other. He's just trying to get to know who is he. He's become aware of this because with a totally open G center, he's aware, I don't know who I am. Tell me, who am I? It's totally open. Where am I headed? What am I off to? So All he needed was the right moment in time to hook him into a trajectory to where it would take him to where he is now, and he would be there naturally. And he would stay there. And he would have no reason to hop off this train, Jen, much like what happened to me when I first discovered human design. I haven't stopped since. Why should I? Look at his profile. So here we have someone who's too unique for the world. When I say too unique, sometimes so unique people can't understand him. That's that whole, people call him a freak. It's because he's so unique. And he's got this 2-4 profile. He's a generator with a 2-4 profile. He's a design of someone that's waiting to be called. I don't know what the first thing he channeled was, but I can tell you David Icke went from footballer to suddenly having a recognition that there's something greater than all of it. And it happened in a moment. David Icke's process just took off basically in a moment for him. He probably even remembers when that moment was. He had an epiphany somewhere along the way. The obstruction of being stuck and this feeling of melancholy over not knowing and this trying to find the purpose to things, his gate 28 off his spleen, and all that depth and all that penetrating awareness, all that action in his spleen, all of this stuff was stuck, and he had an epiphany, and I bet you he could remember it. I bet you could be like, there was a day that the day I woke up. He probably could write a book about it or a short story. There was a moment for I don't know when it was, but there was a moment for David.
Yeah, I'm looking at his books. He's been doing it for very, 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 very long time.
Something else about his definition in this 2-4 profile. So the second line is the Hermit. So what's good for hermits to do? Go write a book. It's like the perfect activity for a hermit.
Yes.
It's like, leave me alone, and I am busy.
He has written a lot of them.
Right? Well, why shouldn't he? He's got all this stuff pouring through. I mean, if I wrote a book, it would be about one thing, because I've got a defined head. It's focused on one thing. You know what I mean? Ish. He has let it all pour through. He has channeled everything. So now all of our gates and lines channel stuff. I mean, we're made to channel. That's what the openness does. It is on the other side of the openness is the receptiveness to basically have the forces come in. And so wherever there is black on his body graph, he channels the feeling. He channels the commitment. He's able to totally commit to something and take it through to completion. He channels being a fighter. He knows he's a fighter. That's very provocative, shall I say. He will provoke the forces. He will provoke the forces and stand right before them. That's gate 39 in his body graph. He can't help it. Down on the root center. So he knows that, but most of his definition, all of his definition, and so much of what David really are these red lines. What's unconscious in him? Notice both definitions have a red gate in them. Whenever you see a red gate in a definition, it means the person is essentially unaware of how this life force is fully playing itself out. They're unaware until it shows up. So he knows he's stuck because of gate 60, but gate 3 is ready to put stuff into order suddenly, mutatively, in the pulse, in a moment. So in a moment, David put ordering to the stuff he was stuck with. And then that channel of emoting, which is emotional. So David goes through his waves. So he goes down on a wave. And when he comes back up, what's he do? Write a book.
Write the book.
Yeah, talk about the very definition of what this creative force is supposed to do. He is defined by nothing but the creative forces. That's his. Dan,
yep. I got one dog that's scratching. Continue talking. I'm going to pop off for just 1 second.
Yep, you do that. I'll keep going. So the next thing about David is if you have this gate 55, which is off the solar plex center, and if you notice, that's red. So what's David channeling? David is always channeling what is the spirit of things. And what does he speak to? He's always speaking to the spirit of things. And who does he give this to? He's always trying to give this to humanity where he feels incredibly bonded. And look at his gate 59 coming off the sacral. This is the generative life force to break down barriers to union, gate 59 off the right-hand side of the sacral. And it's this unconscious, it comes out of nowhere, where he breaks down the barrier of others to entice and draw in union and bonding. David can't help but to basically start the bonds as he derives the spirit of which is it that he's looking for. So he doesn't know what he's looking for. Spirit comes to him. Now, it's his spirit. It's his body and the magnificence of the chemistry of a human body tuned into the matrix, tuned into the field of every center, the field of consciousness. Suddenly, through David, channels the next piece of spirit by which he has to literally dive into. And he knows he dives into things. He can't help it. He can't help it. And as soon as something comes on, it comes his way through gate 55, it brings him such amazing spirit that he goes up on his wave. He comes out. He has endless generative energy to write books, go on shows, do all of his things. He's got endless openness by which to channel through the stuff he's going to write about. And he's got endless mutative capacity to literally stay at it. And then the things he's aware of is he knows he's provocative and he knows he'll put it in order. And he doesn't know how. He has learned to trust that his gate 3 off the bottom of his sacral will simply put the mess into order. Ordering will take place. It's from chaos and confusion, suddenly will come the order in a pulse. So he just sits there and waits. And then when it shows up, he thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I don't blame him. He's a 240. He doesn't know. He's like, oh my God, I discovered that. You know, I mean, it wouldn't matter if 100 people discovered it before him. You know, to him in his own little world, in his own little hermit cave, he's like, look what I found. You know, there are times when David has come out of his hermit cave with look what I have found, only to find out that, oh, yeah, 100 other people found it too. Okay, that's still cool. He's okay with that. It's just always a surprise to him. Look what I found. It's me. I'm so unique. And he is that unique, but you know, he's at his bubble burst a time or two, a little bit, but it doesn't hold him back. That's not the point. That's not the point. Open ego, nothing to prove. So every time someone asks him to prove something, I notice he doesn't really get all that flamed at them. He just stays calm and cool. He's got nothing to prove. And when he's in the aura to someone, they ultimately will define his identity and condition him. And through their conditioning of him, he then reflects back and fires back to them exactly what his identity needs to say, according to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why he's so good on interviews. It's this wide openness that makes him so efficient on an interview. I've seen him talk his way out of things that should have painted him into a corner. And it's nothing inconsistent with stuff he's said already. It's not like he makes up shit. It's not like he's just making it up. Just,
no, I will say that, like, you know, there's been, I mean, in the disclosure community, especially those who do follow David Icke, you know, some people have said that he's compromised. But he's, you know, as long as I've been following him or, you know, paid attention to what he has to say or listened to what he talks about, there's a consistency there.
David Icke is no more compromised than you or I. He's not compromised as far as I'm concerned. He's a little natural. Nobody can really get through to him. David Icke beats Martin's own drum ever and always. And so the second line is the Hermit. And in conversation on shows when he's talking, it's also the Democrat. It's also the bigot, the person who doesn't want to hear what the other has to say for too terribly long. So I notice whenever he's giving an interview, no one else gets to speak for very long. They'll say some stuff and boom, 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 David's got stuff. He can't help it. It's dripping out of him. It's filling his spirit, provoking the conversation, breaking through the limitation of what they don't understand and creating an ordering to it all. Mm-hmm. And this all happens in a pulse. That means it wasn't there, and then 2 words later it is. And you can't help that. That will always be that way. And half of each of these channels, again, is unconscious. So he doesn't even know what's really going to come out. Somewhere, David figured out how to be essentially at peace with his body, mostly, at least as it relates to out in public. So, and that mind of him is able to be an outer authority speaking to the other when he's being interviewed. He's really good at it. I can't speak to the troubles and dilemmas David has in his home life, where his inner authority is so important, because that's where he communes with others, and that's where he has to maintain relationships and have his friends and all of that stuff, where our not self comes out the most. If you give someone a bullhorn and let them start talking, it's not so much who they're not that'll start channeling out what they're saying. They'll start to, their outer authority will start to come out if they're lucky, if they're not totally asleep. And that's cool until someone approaches and engages with them, and then their not self will come out in engagement with the other, because that's what the not self does. It suddenly jockeys for position. It thinks it needs to think it knows what it's about to say next. Stuff like that. It thinks it has to be certain. It thinks it has to come up with the timing of when to talk. If you notice David's open throat center, he has no idea of the timing when to talk. So he has solved that problem by he never stops talking. Well, I mean, that is not exactly the wrong strategy for him, because people are coming to him. David, talk to us.
Right. I was going to say, it doesn't seem like he'll have things to run out of to talk about.
Right. Because he's open. So the expression of what will come out of the throat box for him, out of this throat chakra, to be able to express and articulate, is boundless. And he's got one gate on there. And again, it's unconscious. He's got one unconscious gate, gate 33. That means all of his throat center is tilted or slanted towards the conditioning that will happen when he's in communion with another, towards what that gate does. It says, I remember. It's about finally articulating the experience. So what's he articulating? He's able to infinitely articulate the experience of what happens when David breaks through his limitation and puts order to the spirit that just got channeled through, by which he would love to provoke the rest of the world with. He loves to provoke the world. Let me provoke you a little more. He provokes. I saw him on an interview today with someone saying, David, we're really getting into the thick of things. Aren't you worried someone's going to come and maybe knock you off? It's like, no, they can't even knock me off. My consciousness is too steep for them, he says. It's a perfect 2-4. It's like they can't even see me. He was saying that. He thinks they can't see him. What a beautiful little 2-4 Hermit. I love this man. That's what makes me so convinced that he's not compromised. By the way, if the world around him is compromised, that's possible.
Yes.
Yep, and if some of the mechanics of what he's using to get his language and his ideas and his things out into the world are compromised, that's possible. He could be speaking into a compromised microphone for all we know. But David himself is a hard man to compromise. He'll go to his death uncompromised, essentially, because he's been allowed to do it for too long. He doesn't know any other way. People have been coming to David for so long to be his natural self. And what happens? He answers that call. This is a design of a man who answers his own calling.
Yes.
I mean, you got to admit, the man acts like a man who's been called into something. You just can't turn this thing off. Yeah.
Well, just the information that he shares. You have to be called to do that. That's not, I consider myself a starseed, and I consider, myself higher dimension and stuff like that. To come to, you have to come to a point in your journey to be able to talk about that, especially like on live camera. I mean, he's talking about controversial items that people are not ready to hear. But I will say this, he has been saying it for, over 20 years now.
40 years
and
now.
The stuff that he was talking about way back then is now coming to fruition now.
Yep. Since the 90s.
Yes.
Since the 90s. And I remember one of his very first things was taking place right around when Ra Uru Hu was giving his first real open lectures. So these things sort of line up, which I find very interesting, because as we know, Jennifer, you and I are putting this consciousness into the matrix. Since we have started, we have witnessed the language of the planet and their awareness change, literally commensurate with the stuff we talk about. Now, we can't take credit for that, but certainly we're putting it into the world.
Yes.
And the world can't help but to have received it. Sorry, world, you know, not our fault. It's not David's fault, and it wasn't Ra's fault. So, you know, at the time Ra was giving his first truly open lectures is right around when David was starting to be like, I think I see something, you know, there's something I wish to explain to you. Let me explain it to you. You know, and it's all through this open throat center that is willing to talk about anything. Because when you're open in your throat, you're not one fixed way of how you express. One or two or three at most fixed ways of expression. He's got one conditioned way of expression, and that is his retelling of the whole experience. He's constantly retelling his experience. It's not others' experience, it's his.
Yeah.
And if it's someone else's experience, because he'll reference, you know, an indigenous species or this or that or whatever, if he references other things, it's still his. It's his juxtaposition to it. About his emotional solar plex centers. So David Icke doesn't show it on screen, but we all know if he's emotionally defined, he's gone way down. So he doesn't talk about that. So there's an area where David Icke doesn't really come clean. Why would he? He's not asked about it, and why would he want to? He thinks it's a torture sometimes still, unless we could get a chance to read for him. So
those emotional waves, like I'm
do?
Paying attention. I'm really observing mine recently in all forms, and I know me and you have talked about that off camera. Not just the melancholy and those type of waves, but even the other little waves that come up.
They just show up, Jen, right? They
out
spike.
Of the blue.
Yeah, they spike into existence. That's what the individual emotional wave. It works in a spike. It goes doom doom like a heartbeat, or down, and suddenly it just spikes in one direction or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So this, again, is in that individual romance language of what humanity looks to do in order to have that close bond as a social creature with the other, impacting and speaking and articulating and listening to the other so that you can be of consequence and mutate the other. He just, when you only have individual definition in your body graph, you are a mutative machine dying to mutate the collective, dying to mutate the tribe, dying to mutate anybody who will listen. You can't help it. You just want to put your newness into them. You can't help it. It's a thing. And so when he came up with his downloads, as they were coming in, he may have thought that came through the gods and the heavens and the forces into him. And I can't attest to that is or isn't the case for sure, but I can absolutely attest to the fact that he himself was creating it. Now, was some of it also coming from outside in the etheric field? You know, again, I would say probably, but I do know that it's coming also from his inside chemistry, which is in tune as an aspect to the whole totality. David is right. He is an aspect of the totality, channeling it all. He just comes up with shit, basically. I'm David Icke. If you say 2 or 3 words, I'll take it in and I'll respond with something new. That's David. He can't help it. You know, he could go on Geraldo and speak in Geraldo's voice. He could go, you know, he could go on The View with those 4 ladies who are so obnoxious.
Oh, God, no.
I want to see him there. He would shut them up.
Yeah, that would be, and that's probably about the only time I would watch it.
They wouldn't stand a chance. They could keep cackling, but look at, he's got the shell around him, and it's only individual. So it says, don't you influence. He would just talk right over them. And he's got this deep voice. They wouldn't stand a chance. All 4 or 5 of them would be crying in their little panties. Let's check out this Incarnation Cross. I love this one. That Incarnation Cross of the 4 ways. Now that sounds mystical. What it is there's these 4 ways, one for each quarter of the wheel. The wheel is split up into 4 quarters. As we go around the wheel, there's 4 quarters. And there is a way for each quarter. And so this is the way of mutation, of initiation. He was always going to be the initiator of something. And because look at where his sun is. So I always go to the sun position first, personality sun. That drives the Incarnation Cross. And so that's 24-2. And 24 in his head center is the way of the return. We are here to come up with it and then return, come up with it and then return, not come up with it and keep returning to it until we do come up with it. We're here to mentally return to the scene of the mystery until we come up with it, until we figure it out, until we see it. So his head center is wide open, so he's open to the mystery, yet his Incarnation Cross demands he returns to it, demands it, and he lives that out. This is the right angle cross of the four ways, people whose very direction evolves consciousness and form by seeking clarity and resolution through constantly revisiting and honing in and perfecting mental concepts. And David speaks in a very mentally conceptual way. He can't help that. He is constantly going to push the awareness of our human construct on this planet through his Incarnation Cross. Don't forget, this Incarnation Cross hooks us into our geometry and it pulls us along a trajectory. Even if we're asleep, we're still doing a form of living out our cross. Even if we don't get to live it out for ourselves, it's still out there in the world is the thing. So I doubt he's actually aware of this, but he may be. He does seem like the type that might have heard about his human design before, but it's really odd.
I tagged him.
Well, he's never mentioned it that I've seen it. Jen, why are these guys and gals that are all so smart on our wavelength in this field of consciousness waking up? How is it they don't know about this yet? I just don't get it.
I don't know if they do or not. I don't know.
They're not mentioning it, and that's just dang peculiar because, I mean, what the hell?
Well, it's, to be honest, Dan, it's just now like really getting out there in the ether.
You know what? I sound like David. Here I am not knowing why everyone else doesn't know it yet. You know what I mean? I just realized.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, to be honest, since I, over the past 5 years, and as I've known you for over a year now, you're the one that introduced me to human design. I didn't really hear it that much. And now I am starting to hear it. Even in the community that I'm in, the spiritual disclosure community. Now people are just starting to talk about it, and it's interesting to hear them talk about it because some of them don't fully understand what human design is. They either, and so they reject it, which is, I can understand that to some level, but it is getting out there. It is impacting people, but it's brand new, and some people just don't get it just yet, but they will. I made sure to tag David in this post.
Yes, this stuff is going to come across David's awareness. I love this picture. This is such typical David Icke. You can't take the man off the beeline that he is on. He's too individual. He will go to his grave with that. So that 24-2 running along this consciousness program, that he is here to advance consciousness literally through the mental activity of returning to the scene of the crime. Now it's all in an open center, so that means he's open to it all. He doesn't have one fixed way. It's a perfect design to start figuring out what the hell. That's what the return does. It's always figuring out what the hell. This 24-2 is this you're going to love this, the potential gift of conceptualizing spontaneously. And it's literally the gift of simple, spontaneous conceptualizing. Try to stump David on a question in an interview. I've yet to see it happen. He just, and because he's open in his head center. See, this is a great example of where people are like, well, I'm open there. It's empty, or it's I don't have anything to find there. And it's real easy to see it as a detriment, as a problem you have to overcome, a limitation, we'll call it. Here's a perfect example of why never to look at your openness like a limitation. Because he has the gift of spontaneous awareness that can conceptualize in the moment. Because of that, in an open center, It means he's open to everything he could conceptualize, and he won't get stuck in a rut easily in an open interview situation. Now, if he goes in trying to think he thinks he can remember every talking point he's going to have, he's going to get lost. He'll never make it. He never has notes, ever, that I ever see, really. He just speaks because of this incredible power of 24, line 2, in his personality sun to drive conceptualizing in the moment. This man has returned to the concepts even in his dream state. He never stops returning. His brain is returning to things, conceptualizing. That's why he has so many aha moments. And then suddenly he has a breakthrough. And the next thing you know, he's broken through the pressure to start something new. And his spirit fills up. And boom, he's out saying it. I would like to know David Icke when his spirit is low, when the cup seems empty, and that feeling of emptiness falls upon him in a way that brings him down on his wave, and how he actually makes sense of all of that. I would love to be there for you in that moment, David, and see what that's like, and say stuff and be your friend and stuff. 44, 2. It's called management, the ability to manage the situation. This is a typical second line theme, meaning he's just a natural at it. It shows up. And it's this ability in alertness to spot patterns that need to be managed. He's alert to patterns, period. It just shows up. And again, 44 is in the spleen. It's that black gate pointing to the ego, towards it. 44 pointing at the ego. Yep. And this is the gate of alertness. It's called coming to meet. It's one of the ways. It's one of the 4 ways. Return and then come to meet. There's 4 different ways, and these are the personality ways of the 2 ways of the 4 ways. So returning through the concepts that then come to meet, and that alertness is about what's here to preserve the tribe. It's in the tribal circuitry. Ergo, it's tribal, period. So we automatically know it's support and solidarity and loyalty to the tribe. He has made it very clear that his awake human tribe is his tribe, as we all keep doing. We stop being quite as tribalistic fully, and I notice people left and right saying the humanity is my tribe. And it is. So he's alert to what needs to be managed because of all the stuff he returns to and the concepts he comes up with. So what does he do? He is called to do what? What do 4th lines do? He's called to externalize. The hermit that gets called to hop on their white horse and run out and tell everybody his externalizations.
Yeah, that's what he does.
This man is
to the point of being banned out of countries.
Yeah, right. Good generator, David. Thank you. And so if he were just to have a reading or two, he would start to realize he's got this chemical strategy. He's got a chemistry inside his body. He's got frustration that shows up. He's got an emotional wave, and he would just be so many things would clear up for him if he had his chart actually read for him. And it would
David,
be
if you're listening.
Huh?
I said, David, if you are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any questions about anything show up that we need to answer about David?
No, we don't have any questions at the moment. And Dan, once again, I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, he seems to be definitely living out his design. And yeah, I mean,
notice the people that we like that become famous seem to be closely living out sort of their design, at least in the public forum. Again, at home, I know they go through their struggles.
Yes.
That's now personal. But when your outer authority is speaking, it's just amazing.
Well, even knowing what he's done in the past up until now to this point, he's been living his design. Like
Right.
he's definitely fulfilling his incarnation why he's here.
That cross of the 4 ways is here to bring and return us to consciousness by coming to meet. the alertness to come to meet to return us to our consciousness. Thank you, David. We owe you one, buddy. Keep it up.
Well done.
Yep. So I know this was a little bit of a two-parter. We're going to do a little small thing. Did you want to introduce that, or?
Sure.
Me too.
Yeah. So, guys, and I will go and attach the video and the recording just to give you a little bit of update. Did I change? I didn't change his chart, did I?
No, that's not.
Is that Donald?
No. That's funny.
That's David. That's David. I had Donald's, but I forgot to copy it. Actually, here's Donald.
That's Donald.
We got his picture. I just forgot to copy and put his paste over there. Guys, we did Donald Trump a while back. It's been a couple of months.
Yep.
And so we've already dissected his chart, and he is recently in the news. So Dan's going to be giving us an update about his chart and information. So,
well, the reason we're bringing up Donald Trump's chart is because his home in Florida was recently raided by the FBI, and under the pretense that they need to get these boxes back to the National Archive. As far as I'm concerned, it's all bullshit. You know what I mean? It's the timing of it says, hey, it's an election coming up, and they're so afraid of him that's like, let's make him look bad. We got to make him look bad. The orange man's got to look bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they thought he would just turn into a joke way back when, and nope, the TV show host has done a very good job becoming tenacious. Donald Trump is tenacious. So I just wanted to give a shout out because his emotional definition is all unconscious. So we give Donald a bunch of kudos for being so strong, right? And I really just want to bring up Donald Trump's chart to point out that the source wave of his emotional center, which is in an emotional wave, and it's very powerful, 59-6, this channel of intimacy and bonding, and the crash wave of desire, 36-35, in his body graph going up to the throat, they're totally unconscious. That means as strong as we think Donald is, we have to allow for the fact that Donald is going through his own emotional wave about all of this stuff. He may be on fire with F this and F that, and he's going to do a bunch of stuff about it. But if everyone feels like just taking a moment to, who cares, to just recognize that he's also going through a hard time in moments and or hours and or days. We don't know. There's no rule, right? We can't tell when that comes and goes for him. Only he knows.
Yeah, no, there is no, from an emotional wave on my standpoint, no. We talked about that.
Yep. So
when it comes in and when it leaves.
Well, I just think, it's safe. It's not even an assumption. Donald Trump has his emotional wave. He is not always only ever the strongest man on the political scene. Sometimes he goes down into his well and goes to figure out what the hell, you know what I mean? And he goes through his down part with melancholy and sadness and the whole thing. And all of this happens to him. He's got very little melancholy in his body graph. I'm just recognizing he's only got one individual gate in his whole body. Two, sorry. So anyways, so everyone say a prayer for Donald because, he's going to go through a whole emotional process over all of this. However, fear not in case you sort of hope for Donald to emerge unscathed from all of this, because that big fat fiery ego of his is very powerful and it will come out with the right message. That gate 12 of his, which is defined twice, will figure out what to articulate. That 1-3 profile of his has been studying the whole time. So he's got basically 6-7 years of president college, right? It's a very elite college. Very few people, only 46 people have gone to. So in this country, he was the 45th. And
I wanted to correct that, the 45th and 46th president of the United, because I had that on the slide.
Right.
I just forgot to change out the picture, guys. That's when I lost power and everything like that.
Stay on this picture for a second. Do we know how long ago was this picture of him? Is this recent, like within the last year, month, or day? Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Look at that look on his face. This is a man who's been through his emotional wave. He's got a sober look on his face, and he's about to slice someone up.
Yeah.
The source wave, go back to his chart. The source wave going from the sacral to the solar plex slices the head off the serpent. That's what that source wave does. It just does it. It's this thing because it's generated emotional wave. I mean, that's power. That's a powerful thing. 2 motors. Look at it like a string you put across a highway and people drive by and they get decapitated. You know, that's, and then again, the crash wave going up to the throat. But the reason I say fear not is because he's aware. Black gate number 45, that 45 in his body graph coming off the throat, that which attaches to his ego, it's conscious in him. He's aware that he's got to be the king and the queen. He's got to be the voice of the ruler of the tribe, that he's got to educate us. So even if he holds stuff back, and I bet you there's part of Donald that's an absolute tyrant that we don't approve of at all. I'm sure of it. But for now, you know, he's been the best thing to come along in a little while as it relates to, you know, knocking it all apart so we can see what's underneath the veil. He helped lift the veil. And that's an education. He was sent here to educate us by himself because he's that 1-3 profile. So he sent himself here to educate us. And we don't have to worry too much about whether Donald really got caught with his pants down, because this channel of that he's got, it's not openness. It's from 17 down to 62, from the ajna down to the throat. This is the logical ability to take all of the details and structure a concept in the form of an opinion that he can spit out about what to do. It makes me want to listen to Donald's opinions because they think he's a buffoon, yet he's a design of somebody who will study and investigate and come back with all the details and have that third line of his profile tear it down, tear down the broken foundation. That's what he's doing. So say a prayer for Donald in his low points. Allow them. Keep room for them. Don't ever see him as weak because he might be low in a moment. Never see it. So when you see Donald and he may have a face that shows his inside face shows on the outside, and you see that and you're like, oh my God, he's in a bad way. No, he's actually in a good way, going through his emotional wave, about to get into the creative place that's going to come back out, and that source wave is going to slice the head off the serpent. That's or not. Maybe he'll fail. I you know, who knows? This is not a guarantee.
He'll have clarity at the end of it.
He'll have his clarity. That's the thing. And through that clarity comes, you know, the power that comes from clarity, Jen. You know the power that comes in clarity. You can't stop it. It knows what to do next. Manifesting generator. I will act now. I'm the king of that thing. I will compete for that. I like to win. My name's Donald Trump. I want to win. He wants to win. Let the man win. I say, let the big fat ego talk. It's perfect for him. And he's got the details to back it up. I think this is the channel of recognition. It's not. Why am I forgetting the name of that channel? I'm not looking it up, though. But 1762 is the logical awareness to structure opinions through the details. Gate 62 is the details, and 17 is the opinions. And it's incredibly busy. He's incredibly busy being opinionated about what the hell. Yes. So say a prayer, but don't worry too much. And if you see his down-looking face, just realize he's on the cross of Eden. And the cross of Eden is if you don't know what it's about having just been thrown out of Eden and plopped onto the earth, like, you know, with no clothes, nothing to eat, and realizing, oh my God, this might suck, until you get a grapple on it and realize I'm free. So it's about being kicked out of Eden, and he's living that out right now. They're always kicking him out. He gets kicked out of everything sooner or later, except his own life, and the tribe that's grown to love him. He's got a hell of a supporting base.
Yes, he does, guys. Yep. I'm gonna have the that was episode number 2. He was in episode number 2. I will have it. posted in the comments and the links for you guys to check that out. It was a really good show that we did about Donald Trump. And yeah, I think that'd be a good one to catch up on.
Yeah, so I thought it was a good little update for Donald. Don't worry too much about Donald. He has to go through his wave, and he will. So let him go through it. And if you see that inside face on the outside, don't pay it no, never mind. That's just a process, and he's about to come out swinging.
Oh, whoa, there's a whole bunch of people ready for that.
You know what happens when that emotional wave gets mad? It comes out swinging.
Oh, yes, I do. There's a lot of power behind that emotional wave. And, you know, even coming out of it, he's going to have a massive amount of clarity. And he's been 2 steps ahead of the game with a lot of stuff that's been going on. So
they raided his safe, and it was empty.
I know that's the thing. You know? So, I mean,
they raided the house, and they found 15 boxes, the very same 15 boxes he was working on the department he was supposed to give them back to in the first place. He's saying, hey, some of it's mine. And they're saying, hey, no, some of it's ours. And they were in a process. The FBI never needed to go to the house. The political machine needed the freaking Nazi Gestapo of the FBI to go to the house to hurt
There
them.
was something that came out about the judge, though. So the judge that issued the warrant is also tied to the Epstein
Island. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, come on. You cannot make this shit up, guys.
Right. You want to know the story? I know the story behind it. I read the article, and if it's true, the article seemed factual. You can judge for yourself. But that particular judge was a district attorney in that county, or the county right next to it. And then suddenly, as Jeffrey Epstein's people were all coming up for possible trial, within days of that, he had quit his job, opened up a practice, and the next thing you know, he's the attorney for all of these Epstein people.
Yeah,
in that very same county. So that's the chain of events.
I'm pretty sure that judge was at the island more than once.
I wouldn't doubt it, not one bit. Not one bit. In fact, he probably quit his job to be Epstein's lawyer, not just for the money, because the guy had something on him.
Of course. I mean, that's, yeah. So Donald Trump.
I'm saying that's because the story indicated that he had an LLC set up to go out and be his own law practice in a moment's notice. And he fired it up and suddenly was the lawyer for all the Epstein people. And he made it all sort of squished down so it never made it into the news like we wanted it to as much. You know what I mean? We're still not getting much from Ghislaine Maxwell, and because he helped squash it. So, and now he's the judge.
It's there. I mean, they have to put the information out there in some way, shape, or form, but it is very, you know, you've got to know exactly what to look for. You got to dig for it. You got to look for it. There's all sorts of things. Even check the scrolling banner on the news. Sometimes they don't talk about it on the news, but it'll be in one little clip it in that scrolling banner. They'll say something about it, and then that's it. They let you know. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, we're done. And then on Sunday, it's not official yet, but if we're lucky, we'll have a small panel of reflectors on the show. And if not, well, something else, but we'll know by tomorrow, Friday at the latest.
Yes. And if we're not doing that, guys, if you haven't catched our couple of our past Sunday episodes, we've been doing live readings. Last week we had people who did readings that came on to give their feedback. So if you would like to come on for a mini reading with Dan, please reach out to us. Reach out to me. Some of you know where to find me. If you don't, links down below. Shoot an email to the humandesignadvantage@gmail.com. We'll get you set up with that. If you don't want to come on, make sure you reach out to Dan and get your human design session with him.
Our links are about to book directly, so that it's going to be made a lot easier. It's pretty soon. Yep.
Yes, we are working on a lot of things behind the scene, guys. Yep. So bear with us. Just make sure to check the links down below. Shoot us an email. Either way, nudge me, shoot me a DM. However, most people can find me. I'm all over the place. So we are here. We're opening it up not just to help you with your getting your human design session, but you're going to have to go through a whole deconditioning process with that as well. So we're coming out with more programs and stuff to help hold space for you guys and to really help you integrate this knowledge in. For those who like we had touched earlier, this is something that is impacting the collective, and be prepared, because I feel that human design is not like astrology or anything like that. This is something that it's going to increase the more people it starts getting out in the etheric field and people start encountering this in their lives.
They're going to want to know, by the time we're done building this, Jen, we're going to have a platform to support the world.
In all ways, shapes, or forms. I mean, guys, the more I dig into human design with working with my clients and how I'm incorporating it, like I asked Dan today, I said, we could do this for travel, couldn't we?
Yep.
So for those who know me, I am a travel agent, but literally you can use it for everything. And it's a really good tool to use with coaching, especially. So stay tuned for that. I'll stop rambling. And yeah, you have anything else you'd like to add?
Love you, Jennifer. I think we did a good job.
I think we did too. I love you too, Dan.
All right.
You guys, what was that?
That's all right.
All right.
We're done.
Make sure you like, subscribe, follow the channel. We will see you guys on Sunday. And again, thank you for all your love and support. We are definitely paying attention behind the scenes, and it warms my heart. It's what keeps us going. So thank you guys, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.
Peace.